I grew up in a Christian home, mostly influenced by Baptistic theology. We were in Baptist churches or independent Bible churches most of my life. My dad was the Sunday school superintendent on the deacon board. I grew up in the Sunday schools, in the vacation Bible schools, in the Christian camps over the summer. And really, all through my adolescent years, into high school, and after military, got married, and we were married in a Baptist church. Our kids were brought up in Baptist upbringing. I worked for one of the most well-known evangelical institutions in the country, the Moody Bible Institute in Chicago, a well-respected, revered education facility, but also publisher, broadcaster, etc. And so Orthodoxy was as far from my radar screen as anything could possibly be. I was the manager of Moody's Cleveland station for many years, and we lived near an Orthodox church around the corner from us. And we would drive by that church and see the strange-looking domes, and we'd always, look at each other and says, well, I don't know what's going on in there, but it can't be good. There must be something seriously wrong there. Roman Catholicism on steroids or something. We just literally did not understand or have a category for Orthodoxy. So, spin forward many years. My son is at Wheaton College. Our daughter is at the Moody Bible Institute studying, and she meets her boyfriend, who takes a class at Moody and learns through church history that there is such a thing as the Orthodox Church. And he attends, as a visitor, the Holy Trinity Orthodox Cathedral, OCA Cathedral, in downtown Chicago, and basically falls in love with it. He finds himself going every week, and he's dating my daughter, and so, little known to us, he's taking her with him. And so they had been going long enough that our daughter Molly thought it probably was something she ought to tell us about. And so she came home one day on a weekend from school and said, Mom and Dad, you probably ought to know where Troy and I have been going to church on Sundays. And I said, oh, really? Tell me about it. And she said, well, have you ever heard of the Orthodox Church? And the first thing I thought of when she said the Orthodox Church was Frankie Schaefer. He had this incredibly good upbringing and then threw it all aside to become Orthodox. He bypassed Episcopalians and he went right to Orthodoxy. Why not just be Catholic? And so this was not a good day for me. When we heard about this, we had a very serious talk with Molly, and through tears we tried to convince her that she was definitely on the wrong path. We, at that point, were very Calvinistic in our perspective, and we tried to, instill in her the 5 points of Calvinism and why this was the truth that we needed to uphold. And she, while being respectful, was not buying it. She continued to attend. She was always very upfront with us, and she knew we were disappointed, but it was something that she felt she needed to do. So as the relationship grew, they both graduated from Moody, and a couple of years later, about a year later, Troy came to our house and asked for Molly's hand in marriage. And it was just the two of us. And basically I said, Troy, we think the world of you. We think you'd be a great husband for our daughter Molly, but this Orthodox thing is not working for us. And I just can't imagine my daughter becoming an Orthodox wife, or my grandchildren being brought up as Orthodox. And very patiently he said, I understand, I come from the same background, I know, what you're thinking, and I'm just wondering if you would be willing to investigate and read a little bit about it. And so I thought, well, yes, I think that's the least I can do. And of course I'm thinking, I'll read his books, I'll give him my books, and we'll get him back on the right path. Well, so he encouraged me, first of all, to read Becoming Orthodox by Father Peter Gilchrist, and then The Orthodox Church by then Bishop Callistos Ware. And so we read both. Tanya and I read them together. and we found them very interesting, not necessarily convincing, but we thought, well, that's good. Here are some people who really took an honest look at what is the early church, and they went out to find it. And this is what they discovered. We thought we could shoot holes in it, but it was basically an honest search, so we respected that. And then we read the Orthodox Church, and we read both the history and the theology. And then I think I picked up the Orthodox Way by Ware, and I started learning a little bit more about the spirituality of the church. And I was very much taken, I think it's chapter 2 in the Orthodox Way, where Ware talks about the Incarnation. And that view, that glimpse of the Incarnation just struck me. I had never read anything like that before, how important it is, how basic it is, the physical coming of the second person of the Trinity, and how that changed everything, and what that meant. And so I really started going more down that path of learning more about the Incarnation and the implications of the Incarnation. And of course that started impacting my view of icons and my view of Mary as the Theotokos. And all of this time, my wife is also reading other material about Orthodoxy, and we'd compare notes every once in a while, and we kind of felt like we were warming up to it. Until Troy invited us to church. And so our very first experience of an Orthodox church was at the Holy Trinity Cathedral in Chicago. And we got in, and our son and daughter-in-law also came along because they apparently had been visiting as well. And we got our first glimpse and smell of Orthodoxy. And I'll have to say it was 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. We really were discouraged after that. It was so foreign to our ears and so strange that it literally scared us away. And so we had dinner afterwards. We went out to breakfast, actually, and we were talking about it. And I said, Troy, I don't get it. I don't understand what your draw is to this. On paper, it sounds good. Everybody wants to know what is the early church. But I've got to tell you, in experience, it lacks quite a bit. And, then I turned to Tanya and I said, Tanya, tell him, what were your impressions of it? And she just kind of looked very soberly at me and said, John, I don't know how to tell you this, but I think I have worshipped for the first time this morning. You're kidding. What church did you go to? Because that's not what I experienced. So I turned to my Wheaton son, Bobby, and I think, surely he's going to side with me on this. And he says, well, Dad, to be honest with you, we've been going with Troy and Molly for some time, and we feel drawn to this. So, my entire family is now against me. And, we left on a little bit awkward and tense terms at that point. But I continued to study. And eventually, Father Peter Gilquist came to visit Chicago, and Troy, our son-in-law, said, I'll go with you to hear him. He's going to be over here at All Saints Orthodox Church. Would you be willing to go with me? So we did. We went and visited, and here's Father Peter Gilquist with his big study Bible under his arm, talking like an evangelical. And, I recognize those terms that he's using. He's talking about a relationship with Christ. He's talking about, the Bible and the importance of understanding and knowing Scripture. But he was also talking about interpreting Scripture through the Church Fathers, and that there is a tradition that we need to know about, respect, and learn from, that a lot of us have made it up as we go along in these later years of Christendom, and we've kind of created our own versions of Christianity that may or may not be anything like the original version. And so that really got us to thinking, and we started attending this All Saints Church because it was largely made up of evangelicals, and I think 95% of them were converts from evangelicalism. So we were comfortable with the crowd, and we knew the terminology. They had similar experiences as we did. And so before long, a new priest had come along by the name of Father Patrick Henry Reardon. And I had heard about Father Pat, and I knew that he was a theological scholar and that we could learn a lot from him. But I didn't realize how much, because I soon learned that in Father Pat, here was a man that knew more had forgotten more Bible than I had ever learned as an evangelical Christian, and had ready answers to my questions. And we spent a lot of time with him. We had Father Pat and Maria Denise over to the house many times, and I'd grill him on my questions about Calvinism, about the Eucharist, about baptism. And patiently, and sometimes, as if you know Father Pat, not so patiently, he would answer my questions, and I had nothing to defend. And so we found ourselves really ready to embrace. And I was at the point where, I want the Eucharist. I want the body and blood of Christ. And he would just kind of hold us off and said, I don't think you're ready yet. Orthodoxy is in no hurry. And that was wisdom that we needed to hear. And so we continued to be catechized really for more than a year until finally in July of 1999 we were chrismated at All Saints Orthodox Church, and are very thankful that we found the true faith, and that we feel connected to history. We feel connected to the Church of the Apostles and the Church of the 2nd century and the 3rd century. All of those centuries that we missed because we had started with the Reformation and moved forward. But there was a wealth of riches and treasures that we had missed. And we were so thankful to have found them, and so thankful to now be Orthodox.
Did years burn up those words? Did a voice whisper absurd? Did your mind comprehend and ask if you'd last till the end?